Hey everybody, welcome into To The Point. Hope you're doing well. I am back tonight after like a 2-week hiatus. I just needed a break. Was talked about my dog Dirk who died, and just spent a lot of time outside, a lot of hikes, just thinking I wanted to come back the right way. I wanted to be inspired and have the energy, have everything to do this. And I feel like I'm back. I'm back today. We're going to start doing shows 2 to 3 times a week now. And I'm happy to be with all of you. I'm sorry if you missed the content over the last couple weeks, but regular episodes will be coming as we move forward here. Yes, it is the summer, and there's less content than the fall, the spring, but there's still lots to talk about. We have the Olympics, which the opening ceremonies are 2 weeks from Friday, or week from Friday, 2 weeks from Friday, pardon me. And so we got the Olympics coming up this Thursday in England. We got the Open Championship at Royal Troon, and we're going to talk about that later on in the show. The last major of the year, the last big event before the Olympics for the golfers. Scottie Scheffler opens the tournament as the betting favorite. No surprise. We also have some big names on that list right below him. But later on in the show, we're going to talk about UFC Denver, which was this week an interesting event. We're going to talk about Major League Baseball and something they did right last week. But I want to start at the All England Club, where yesterday it was a weird day for England because you're hosting the best tennis tournament on the planet. I don't love England. I've said this. I hate the royal family. I don't think they stand for much, but whatever they do stand for, I disagree with it. The fact that they give out the trophy to me is pretentious. A lot of the tournament is pretentious, but the grass court's the best tennis court. It's the best tournament. It's the most entertaining. Wimbledon is special. More special than the other events, quite frankly. And it gets even more entertaining, gets more special when you see all-time greats win. Roger Federer has 8 Wimbledon championships. Novak Djokovic has 7 Wimbledon championships. We saw Rafael Nadal win multiple times at Wimbledon. Andy Murray is a 2-time Wimbledon champion, including winning an Olympic gold medal on home soil. We saw another all-time great win yesterday. Carlos Alcaraz may only be 21 years old. He may be new if you're new to tennis. He's not one of the big four. But Carlos Alcaraz, at 21 years old, already has 4 major championships. Carlos Alcaraz has never lost in a Grand Slam final. 4-0 to start his career, which is the second best all-time, trailing only Roger Federer, who won his first 7. He is the most unique, the most creative, the most athletic tennis player that's ever existed. Not hyperbole. I don't know if he'll be better than Federer, better than Djokovic, better than Rafael Nadal. Winning 24, 25 majors, the way he plays, is unlikely. But there's something that's not a debate anymore. I was having this conversation with my mother. We both love tennis. She's a huge sports fan. And, I like to be on the right side of an argument. She likes to pick her favorites, which is fine. It's fine. But it's good when you're doing that because I know I'll be right. I told her last week, Carlos Alcaraz is the best tennis player in the world. And she said, well, Djokovic is there, Jannik Sinner. Both good players. Sinner's currently ranked number 1. But I don't care if Alcaraz is ranked 295th. I know the best when I see the best. He's won back-to-back majors on clay, on grass, spanning a little over a month. Nobody can do what he can do. Jannik Sinner will win more than one major by the time his career is over, but he will never be looked at as fondly. He will never be as good as Carlos Alcaraz. Simple as that. Carlos has a skill set that nobody's ever had. There's been unique tennis players, there's been athletic tennis players, but nobody like him. Djokovic hit shots that most people wouldn't be able to return. Alcaraz would hit a winner off of that shot. Djokovic, I don't think he played horrible yesterday in the final. In particular, in the third set, he had his opportunities. But despite the fact that Alcaraz had 2 breaks in the third set and he gave them both back, and despite the fact that his serve was pretty pedestrian for most of the tournament, he won in the final in straight sets against the greatest tennis player to ever do it. Djokovic is a lot of things. Arrogant, yes. Opinionated, yes. Jackass, maybe. Courageous, to me, he is. Self-involved, sure. He's all of those things, but he's the greatest of all time. I don't like him, but you have to admit the truth. When you see something fantastic in front of you, you have to say, yeah, you know what? That's right. He's great, and he's the greatest ever. And I don't think Carlos will be remembered being better than Novak Djokovic. Because you're talking about 24 Grand Slams. You're talking about the dominance that Novak had on every surface other than clay, where you had the king of clay, Rafael Nadal. The best individual. Nobody will ever play better on one particular surface than Nadal, ever. Ever, because he's that good. But to win back-to-back Wimbledons for Alcaraz, where you beat Djokovic in both finals, that's impressive stuff. And he's number 3 in the world right now. That doesn't matter. The number 1 ranking, I remember it used to mean something. It doesn't anymore because that just means you're playing more events. You're getting more rankings points. If you're looking at it this way, the way it really matters, Sinner this year has 1 major at number 1. Djokovic at number 2 has 0. Alcaraz at number 3 has 2. 2 is more than 0, I believe, and 2 is more than 1, I believe. So to me, the best player in the world, the best player in tennis in 2024 is Carlos Alcaraz from Spain. He is must-see television. Every match he is in is unique. It's special. He will pull off a shot you've never seen before. And he's just a phenomenal talent. I love watching him play. Again, you might not like him. He can look to his box, which is irritating. He has that flair that a lot of people from Spain did. Nadal had some things you might look at him and go, okay, he's not that likable. He was really OCD and he had to do the same thing every time he went up to serve. Same thing every time he returned to serve. But he was great. And he won a lot. He beat Federer at Wimbledon. He played the best of the best and he found a way to win. So it's really impressive what has transpired, what he's doing at his age, being so good, not wilting in the finals against the best players. Losing a set to Tommy Paul, losing a set to Daniil Medvedev, not panicking and finding a way to win. But he's the best player in the world, no doubt about it. And he's awesome to see. He's going to keep pushing tennis forward. You worried about the big four leaving. Nadal is basically done. He's going to play the Olympics, but he's never going to be Rafael Nadal again. Djokovic got to a final. Do I think if Djokovic is fully healthy and he gets the draw the right way and he doesn't have to play Carlos, he can win another major? Absolutely. Because I think Djokovic would have beaten anybody in the draw other than Alcaraz in the final. Anybody. Medvedev, Sinner, you name, he's beaten them. Because he played well enough to do it. But you're going up against a guy who's 16 years younger than you, who's more athletic than you, who at the time is more fit than you. It's a really tough task. Could Djokovic go to the US Open and win? Absolutely. He will. I don't know if he'll be the betting favorite anymore because Alcaraz has risen to that level where I think he's going to get the respect going into tournaments. But Djokovic can still win one. But in totality, Alcaraz is the best player in the world. And he's got 4 already. And he's young. And I think he wants more, and I think he wants to be great. He said in an interview he wants to push for the legends. He wants to be on their level. He wants to win as many Grand Slams as he possibly can. I think he loves tennis. I think he's driven. But he pushes the sport forward because he's so fun and because he has a personality and because he's great. And I'm in. Any match he's playing, it's amazing. Must-see TV. Credit to Carlos. Credit to Djokovic for having knee surgery, playing in Wimbledon, making it somewhat of a match, although it never really was close. Just getting to the final is a massive accomplishment that I didn't think he would. So credit to him for doing it. In the women's final, Barbara Krejcikova, who won the French Open a number of years ago, kind of came out of nowhere winning the French. She got into the top 5 at one point, but then she went through her struggles. She detailed them, saying kind of gave up on herself, lost confidence, and she kind of had to go back to the drawing board. Had a decent showing at the French, but had fallen all the way to 32nd in the world, was barely a seed. And she goes into Wimbledon, loses a set in the semifinal, finds a way to win. Wins the first set, gives up the second set to Jasmine Paolini, and pulls it out in the third set to now have a French Open and a Wimbledon championship on her resume, and is now back into the top 10 of the rankings in the women's draw. 2 unique surfaces, 2 very different surfaces. This is the 8th straight different women's champion at Wimbledon. I think you look around and go, you have Alcaraz in the men's draw. I don't think you have a one individual in the women's game that you can say they're going to win every time. You don't have that. Sabalenka is great. Rybakina is great at times. Swiatek is fantastic on the clay. When she's not on the clay, she can be had by just about anybody. Coco Gauff is a good player, but she's young, she's emotional, and I don't think she's a great player tournament in, tournament out. So on the women's side, it's a hodgepodge of good players who could win. But I also think on the women's draw, anybody can win. You get hot, Krejcikova was not even looked at. Jasmine Paolini has gone to back-to-back Grand Slam finals, losing them both, which is brutal for her. But she's now into the top 5 of the rankings. She's 28 years old. She was a relative unknown until about a month and a half ago, when she went on a run at the French Open, losing to Swiatek, now losing to Krejcikova. It just proves draws open up. You have Coco Gauff losing in the 3rd round, then things happen. Madison Keys loses early, and you go, okay, well, I could see it. In back-to-back majors, there has been at least three women in the semifinals that are unranked. That doesn't happen. That's rare to see. But it's happening more and more. You get hot, you go on a run. Yelena Ostapenko winning the French Open in 2017 at 16 years old. Jasmine Paolini going on runs. There's good players on the women's, a lot of good players on the women. And I don't think people winning every other time is bad. I think it's nice to have the contrast. Because I think the men, you have your best player, Carlos. Women, you're like, who's going to win? I don't know. Who's going to have more tonight? Who's going to have more to give? Who can get hot in this tournament? Whose serve is going really well? Look at that draw. It looks really good for that person. Like in 10 years' time, I think Coco Gauff will have more than one major. I think she's a good player, not a great player, but I think she'll have more than the one major she currently has. Sabalenka has 2. I think she has 5+, 10 years' time. Swiatek will have 5 or 6 French Opens. I don't know how many other times she'll win outside of clay, but she'll have 6, 7 majors. Who knows, maybe Krejcikova can win another one before her career is over. Jasmine Paolini, 2 Grand Slam finals. Can she get to a 3rd Grand Slam final? Unlikely, but you never know. So you have that contrast. But it was a bad day for England because Carlos wins, which I think they're happy with because Djokovic acted like a horse's ass when they were cheering for Holger Rune and not him. And the English crowd were not happy with him, which, good for them. They don't have to cheer for him. And here's another thing. He gets mad because they're saying Rune. I don't think they were booing him, but even if they were booing him, who says that people have to cheer for you? Who says that people can't boo? Normally, tennis is this holier-than-thou thing where, shh, thank you. Well, somebody's ready to serve. You should be able to say something while they're serving. It's so BS that these are the rules. Novak Djokovic, and I just said it, he's the best player of all time, but that does not mean everybody has to like him. That's not the social contract. That's not how it works. You're the best, then ergo I have to kiss your ass. No. Do you think that when Wayne Gretzky played in Calgary, that when he got the puck, they wouldn't boo him when he was a member of the Oilers? No, they booed him because he was a member of the Oilers, and they didn't like him. Novak Djokovic, people, if you think about life, how many people were turned against? How many people were shunned during, I don't know, like the pandemic when people didn't like them because they wouldn't get a jab? You'd boo them because they made a decision you didn't like. And guess what? You could hate them. That was your right as a free person. As a person who buys a ticket, you have the right to boo whoever the hell you want to boo. And fans annoy me, but this is easy stuff. Oh, he's the greatest of all time. You can't boo him. You have to show him respect. Says who? Is every fan his fucking mother? No. The fact that he cared, the fact that people are like, oh, so disrespectful. Get over yourself. You buy a ticket, you can do what you want. Period. End of story. Novak Djokovic. Again, greatest of all time. But that does not mean when Michael Jordan played in Salt Lake City, Utah, against the Utah Jazz, they didn't cheer him when he had the ball. He's the greatest player of all time. They don't cheer him. LeBron James went back to Akron, Ohio, where he's from, to play against the Cavaliers for the first time. They were burning his jerseys in the parking lot. They threw shit at him. Oh, but you can't boo Novak Djokovic? GMAB. Give me a break. Ugh. Pretentious tennis fans. Ugh. But Alcaraz wins. Then Spain beats England in the Euro finals. Fun game. Spain was the better team. They deserved to win the entire tournament. Never trailed in the game. Never lost the game. England gets back to a final. They lose again. I don't know. I've watched a lot of soccer over the last couple weeks. And I gotta tell you, I'm trying to like it more. Because it is the most popular sport in the world. And I don't like to admit that. Because, I'd rather it be American football, the real football, the sport where men play. But I mean, I would like it more if it wasn't the diving and it wasn't crying every time you touch your shoelace. Like that Canada game late against Uruguay on Saturday, that was just a joke. It makes you not respect it. And it's gotten worse. It's gotten worse in hockey with diving. It's gotten worse in basketball. Don't get me wrong. But not to this extreme. And I've heard from soccer fans going, well, watch the other sport. I do. And yeah, I admit, flopping in basketball, it's bad. And you can blame LeBron because he started it. But a lot of guys do it. But soccer, it's just, and I want to like it. I'm going to watch it at the Olympics. The Euro tournament was really good, if you ask me. Ratings crushed. Games were fun. The Copa America, it was okay. Canada made it to the semifinal. But you could tell there's a difference between the level of play in the Euros and at the Copa America. Like Canada has no chance against England, Spain, any team that made really the last 5 or 6. Canada would get crushed by them. And I think England would beat Argentina. Just straight up. Head to head, if they played, I think they'd beat them. But again, I'm no footy expert, but I think I know quality when I see it. But nevertheless, Carlos wins. England loses in Euros. Sergio Garcia wins on the Live Tour. So another win for Spain. But old Harry Hall did win his first PGA Tour event yesterday in a 5-man playoff at the ISCO Championships. And he's an Englishman. So they did get some positive news, England, yesterday, in a bad Sunday for the country. But they do have the Open Championship this week to celebrate Robert McIntyre. A Scotsman won his home tournament, the Genesis Scottish Open. It's his second win in a little under 2 months. Won the RBC Canadian Open, then wins at home. Really good player, only 27. Good putter, confident. You had the return of Rory McIlroy. He had a decent tournament. But you have a number of guys, Justin Thomas, who really struggled on the weekend. Rory McIlroy, who's just trying to get back out there and play, find his confidence again, kind of get back to what he used to be prior to that meltdown at the US Open with those 2 putts. Curious to see what it's like at the Open Champion. We'll talk about that later in the week. And the favorites and where things stand. But the last major year, you got to love it. Golf, with not a whole lot going on. Some breaking news here. We rarely talk about CFL on this podcast. But I like the CFL. I watch every CFL game, fun fact. If I can't watch it live, I'll tape it and I'll watch it. I just have an appreciation for the league. I like it. It presents opportunities. My grandfather loved it, so that's another reason why I really follow it. But the Edmonton Elks, who got walked off last night against the Ottawa Redblacks, have fired head coach and GM Chris Jones just now. Chris Jones, who was successful, then left for an NFL job, then came back, has been a disaster the last number of years. So after an 0-5 start to the 2024 season, the Edmonton Elks are shaking things up. The Elks fired head coach and general manager Chris Jones on Monday, the team announced. Assistant GM G. Roy Simon will take over as the interim general manager, while offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Jarius Jackson will become the team's interim head coach. Over the course of 2+ seasons, the Elks had a combined record of 8-33 under Jones' leadership. They did some stuff. Like, they brought in McLeod Bethel Thompson this summer, who returned from the UFL, he was a Grey Cup champion with the Argonauts, hasn't worked. They signed Eugene Lewis, who was the 2002 Eastern most outstanding player in the CFL. He's got less than 200 yards receiving after 5 games on the season. Bethel Thompson's having a lot of turnovers. Their defense isn't consistent. They turn the ball over a ton. And I thought they were going to fire him in the offseason. They decide to do it now. I think it's stupid. They should have did it in the offseason. But they're 0-5. You can make an argument their season's already toast. And the reason I say that is you look at the CFL standings. In the West, you got BC 5-1. They're playing great football. Vernon Adams Jr., love it. Saskatchewan at 4-1. Trevor Harris is battling an injury, but they're a pretty damn good team. Calgary at 2-3. Winnipeg now 2-4, but Winnipeg's won 2 in a row. They're starting to play like the Winnipeg we thought they'd be at the start of the season. You have Edmonton at 0-5. There's no gimmies there. No easy wins in the Western Conference. Not to mention they lost to Ottawa, who are 3-2. But you have a lot of teams in the mix, and then Edmonton and Hamilton both at 0-5, who are going nowhere fast. But the Elks made the right decision. He should have went in the offseason. It's a little too late to have a significant impact on this season, I believe. I'm curious to see if they move back to Trey Ford, who's a Canadian quarterback who played a lot last year, extremely athletic, likes to run with the football, something McLeod Bethel Thompson really doesn't do. I'm curious to see what happens. So, a lot to be decided. But big news as the Elks have fired Chris Jones. let's move to baseball. We're at the Major League Baseball All-Star break. The Blue Jays stink, so nothing's changed there. They lose 2 out of 3 to the Diamondbacks this weekend. Kikuchi on the trade block. Garcia on the trade block. I don't think Bichette or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will be traded, but there will be rumors. As people say, the Blue Jays need to retool, not rebuild. I don't think they're necessarily wrong, but they're not close to being a competitive team right now. But at the All-Star break, there's a lot to look at. Yankees and Orioles are a game apart. Yankees had a big lead at one point. They lost 18 out of 25 games. But yet, even after that horrible stretch, they're only one back of the Orioles. They played well against the Orioles this year, head-to-head. I think they have better starting pitching. And I believe they will be aggressive at the trade deadline because they believe they have a team that can compete for a World Series. And they're probably not wrong. I didn't have them being this good at this point. So that's a L, that's a wrong for yours truly. Texas Rangers, the reigning, defending World Series champions, are in a bad way, for lack of a better term. They are currently third in their division. They are not in a playoff spot if the season ended today. They are 7.5 back of the final wild card spot in the American League. And they are 4 games below 500, only close to the Blue Jays. That's where they currently sit. Pitching struggle. They have a big payroll. Max Scherzer's reportedly on the board, could be traded. We'll see if that comes to fruition. They did win 2 or 3 against the Astros this weekend, but it has not been an easy season for the Rangers trying to repeat as World Series champions. Astros have had an interesting season. 4 games below 500. 4 games above 500 at this point. They've crawled back, playing better baseball. But they're still chasing the Royals, still chasing the Red Sox, who have been one of the best stories in baseball. 11 games over 500 at this point, with a much lower payroll than they had last year when they didn't make the playoffs. Rafael Devers has a really good season. Brian Bello, Tanner Houck. They're getting good pitching. They're a good team. Let's see. Cleveland Guardians, 58-37 at the break. Most wins in the American League. Most surprising team by far, Josh Naylor, the Canadian first baseman, is an all-star. That's a surprise to me. Terry Francona retires, and yet this team still has a lot to give. If you look at Jose Ramirez having a very good season, like he normally does. 23 home runs already. He will compete in the home run derby tonight. Andre Jimenez batting .252, but bringing Josh Naylor, not a great average, but 22 homers. Driving in runs, doing his thing. Stephen Kwan batting .352 on the season. Impressive stuff. Freeman, Rocchio, Fry, all guys batting close or above 300 at the All-Star break. Great team, great story, low payroll. In the American League Central this year that's actually competitive, you have the Twins with 54 wins, but they're in the second wildcard spot. Royals 52-45, but they would miss the playoffs if the season ended today. And they've had guys like Michael Wacha, and they've had Seth Lugo, who have had really impressive seasons, good pitching performances. Phillies, best team in baseball, 62-34. Most wins at the All-Star break by any Phillies team in Major League Baseball history. Maybe the most surprising, they are 6 games up on the Dodgers for the number 1 spot. Dodgers are 56-41. They've been good. Ohtani's had a great season swinging the bat. But the thing for them are injuries. Mookie Betts remains out. Gavin Lux just returned, hasn't been playing all that well. No Walker Buehler. No Tony Gonsolin. No Clayton Kershaw. No Yamamoto. No Tyler Glasnow. They will get reinforcements back, but how good are those reinforcements going to be when they return? They lose 2 out of 3 to the to the Tigers before the All-Star break. They get swept by the Phillies this week. They've lost 6 out of their last 7 going into the All-Star break, and they needed the break. Milwaukee, 55-42, surprisingly leading the American League Central. Their manager, Craig Counsell, leaves Milwaukee, Wisconsin to take the Cubs job. Said he loved Milwaukee, but the money was so good. Great opportunity, Cubs spending money. The Chicago Cubs are 47-51. They are still in the hunt for the wild card in the National League, but everybody is other than the Rockies and the Marlins, who have 33 and 34 wins, respectively. But the Cubs are below San Francisco. They're below Cincinnati, below the Pittsburgh Pirates, who we'll get to in a minute, below the Padres, below the D-backs, below the Mets, who are in a wild card, below the Cardinals, who are in their division alongside them. Cubs can't be happy. They're spending big money on payroll, spending big money on a manager, and they're not going to make the playoffs. They're not jumping 6 teams between now and September. If I'm wrong, we'll get back to it on the pod, but I don't think I will be. They don't have the talent. They don't have the pitching. I don't think they're going to add at the deadline. They shouldn't anyway. We'll see. San Francisco, 3 games under 500, just like the Cubs. They signed a lot of guys. Blake Snell, who's been a complete gas can after waiting for a contract that really never came. Jorge Soler, Matt Chapman. All the signings have been pretty bad for the Giants. They're not playing well. They're 4th, and their divisions has 5 teams, so that's how good they've been. They're going to have to play really good baseball down the stretch to make the playoffs. Again, I don't think they will be. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. I want to talk about these 2 teams. If I'm Major League Baseball, I want the Reds and I want the Pirates to make the playoffs this year. I also want the Braves to make it, who lost Ronald Acuna Jr., if you remember, earlier in the season. And that hurts baseball because he was the MVP last year and he stole a ton of bases and hits home runs, and he's fantastic. But if I can look up and go, Cardinals, Mets, Diamondbacks, Padres, all fine. Good markets, but, the Diamondbacks were in the World Series last year, and it didn't really move the needle. I don't think that many people were excited to see the Diamondbacks. It's not a huge market. Not that many people care. Texas, Arizona, I don't think ratings were fantastic. Cardinals are, one of the birthplaces of baseball. You could argue they have the best fan base in all of MLB. But again, the Cardinals, they're fine. They'll sell out the park, which is great. But do I think people are tuning into Major League Baseball to see Nolan Arenado at this point, or to see Paul Goldschmidt, or see Sonny Gray pitch? I don't think so. The Mets, Steve Cohen, huge turnaround. The Mets spending a whole lot of money for players that don't play for them, but they're winning. I don't think people care about the Mets that much. The reason I say Pirates and Reds, the key to keeping your product viable and keeping people interested is giving them a reason to watch. And the reason to watch baseball right now are two players, Paul Skenes and Ellie De La Cruz. Ellie De La Cruz, if you're not familiar, is a third baseman, can play shortstop. He plays in the infield for the Cincinnati Reds. He's a big guy, he steals bases, and he's one of the most electric players in the game. This season, he's only batting .256, but he's hit 17 homers, scored 64 runs, 43 runs batted in. He's walked 44 times, and he has 46 stolen bases. And by the way, he is maybe the biggest arm at third base in the bigs right now. He can throw it like a rope on target. He makes things happen. He's special. He's fun to watch. When he's on the base pass, you have to be aware of him. Pitchers handle it differently. In Cincinnati, other than him, Spencer Steer's a good player. Not a household name. Hamir Candelario, former Detroit Tigers third baseman. Jonathan India, solid pro. He's an okay player. He's batting, he's batting .242, 15 homers. He's fine. Benson, solid. Jake Fraley. Santiago Espinal, remember him, former Blue Jay. Luke Maile, former Blue Jay. But they have a team full of guys that you go, okay, well, it's fine. You watch Ellie De La Cruz. You watch Hunter Green pitch for Cincinnati. There's something fun about that combination. There's something fun about the team where you know you have a guy who makes things happen. Cincinnati, thinking back to their great teams, the Big Red Machine. That's what it's all about. They were a baseball powerhouse. They had really good teams. They've fallen off. Attendance has sucked. Ownership has flip-flopped back and forth. But they have a star right now. They have a guy that is so unique, that is so fun to watch, that makes things interesting. You have to capitalize on that if you're Major League Baseball. You have to look around and go, we need Ellie De La Cruz in the playoffs. We need him playing at least in the wild card to play against these teams. Now, you can't control that, but you got to hope with the expanded playoff. You got to hope with what's transpiring that you can make it, that he can get there. Because you want people to tune in. People will watch the Yankees because they're the Yankees. It's a brand. But the Blue Jays aren't going to make the playoffs. And the Blue Jays have been a playoff team the last number of years, and the Blue Jays get good ratings. But they're not going. So that's out of the picture. So you have the Yankees, who are a draw. National League Dodgers are a draw. But are they going to be playing till the end of October, early November? I'm not so sure. I said from the beginning, this is not their year to win. This is not their year because their pitching isn't good enough. Their pitching isn't threatening. Their pitching scares nobody. They can be had, but they should have lost all 3 games to the Tigers this weekend. They might get guys back, but I don't think the Dodgers are winning the World Series. I said this before the season started. I don't think the Dodgers are getting to the NLCS. They'll be out by the divisional round. They're not deep enough. They're not good enough right now. Their pitching is so flawed. So they might be around for 5 days, and then the Dodgers are out. Phillies, good. You're happy about that if you're baseball. Braves, we'll see. A lot of injuries. Brewers, who cares? But you need the Reds and you need the Pirates. Paul Skenes is starting the All-Star game tomorrow for the National League. He can throw 102 mile an hour. He throws a pitch called a splinker. He was number 1 overall pick last year by the Pirates. and he's been phenomenal. 11 games this year, 6-0, 66 in the third innings, 190 ERA, 0.92 whip, 89 strikeouts, 13 walks. He is an electric pitcher. He's dating Livy Dunn, who went to LSU with him. She's one of the most popular people on the internet right now. He is killing it on so many different levels. On the mound, off the mound, getting all kinds of endorsement deals. And after getting called up, after pitching briefly in AAA, it was announced on Friday that Paul Skenes will in fact start the All-Star game. And it's the correct decision. If you're going to have a gimmick event where every team has to be represented, which is stupid, but if you're going to have a gimmick event, at least have somebody start the game who people want to see. No offense to Chris Sale or Ranger Suarez or any other Phillies pitcher who they're going to put on the All-Star team. Paul Skenes. You want somebody to tune into the game tomorrow night, and maybe they'll stick around after it, because Paul Skenes is going to throw one inning. That's it. It might as well be the first one so people tune in and maybe you watch the rest of the game because you're interested and you find a guy that you really like and you see what happens. But this is one where you can manipulate it. Paul Skenes is the correct choice. It's not. Chris Sale's had a fantastic season. What a turnaround with the Braves. After his struggles with the Boston Red Sox to pitch well, to be healthy, to do anything coherent in Boston. They hate him in Boston. They booed the shit out of him in Boston because he was garbage. He's worthy of being the All-Star Game starter. But he can pitch in the second inning. And I actually think he was injury replaced today, so he's not even pitching. But Ranger Suarez, probably better numbers, probably deserves it over Paul Skenes. No. You put the guy on the marquee that people want to see, and that's Paul Skenes, period. He's phenomenal. I tune into Pirates games when I know he's on the mound because I want to see him pitch. If you're going to be a bad team, and the Pirates aren't totally awful like they used to be, but they're not great either. The one thing that you can have is an entertaining guy, an entertaining person on your team to make people want to tune in. The Pirates have that, and the Cincinnati Reds have that. They are far more interesting to me than the teams leading their division. They're more interesting than Chicago. They're more interesting than the Cubs, than the Brewers. Because they have two players that are so unique, so different, that make the sport a whole lot of fun to watch. Sure, Milwaukee can play good small ball, and they'll get a home run every now and then. And they're going to win more games because they're better. They have more talent. They've won the division in the last number of years. That's all fine and good. But if I'm the Pirates, what this tells me, Skenes is starting the All-Star game. We like our manager for the first time in a very long time. Our ownership seems to be somewhat lockstep. At the All-Star game, we're 500. I don't think anybody saw that coming. The Pirates should be a team that adds at the deadline. I'm not saying you sell the farm because you're not going to win a World Series this year, but this is what people have to realize. You have a guy throwing 102. You have guys blowing their arm off. He's going to have Tommy John. And if you're good, his Tommy John might come in the wrong season. We're ready to compete. We spent big money. We're going for this. And then he's done for the season. And then you're up shit creek without a paddle. And you're not good enough to compete. To me, I think Pirates should be looking to add. The Major League Baseball got it right with Paul Skenes starting the All-Star game. The home run derby, the All-Star game, I don't really get excited for these things, as you know. I might watch a bit of the home run derby tonight. We'll see. See what's on the docket. You got Pete Alonso, who's won it twice in the field at plus 300. Gunnar Henderson, the great second baseman for the Baltimore Orioles, plus 380. Bobby Witt Jr. of the Kansas City Royals at plus 430. Marcell Ozuna, what a season for him down in Hotlanta, at plus 450. Adolis Garcia, the reigning World Series MVP. Teoscar Hernandez, remember him, Blue Jay fans, plus 1,200. Jose Ramirez of the Guardians at plus 1,500. And Alec Baum, the Phillies third baseman, at plus 2,200, has the worst odds to win tonight. Pete Alonso is the polar bear. He is kind of the face of the home run derby. Signs up for it every year. I think he gets good endorsements. It's kind of his coming out party. He lost to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. last year. I'm going with Gunnar Henderson. He's my pick. That guy can hit home runs. He's second in Major League Baseball in home runs, behind only Aaron Judge, who has 34 home runs. That is the most homers by a Yankee at the All-Star break in the history of the franchise. And the franchise has been around for a minute, so impressive stuff by Aaron Judge. But Gunnar Henderson's special young talent, can hit homers. I don't think he'll tire out. I don't think Baum's going to be close. Jose Ramirez is a good home run hitter. I don't know. Marcell Ozuna, Bobby Witt Jr., I don't think he should have the third best odds, but that's just me. But it's always interesting. The games tomorrow. Again, I'll turn in to see Paul Skenes pitch. First couple innings, when that's over, I flip the channel. It's a quiet week on the sports calendar. You have Summer League basketball in Las Vegas. You have some tennis tournaments going on. The Open Championship begins on Thursday at Royal Troon. But there's not a whole lot going on in the NHL. A lot of things have been figured out. We will have the Olympics. Jaylen Brown was not picked for the United States Olympic basketball team. The NBA Finals MVP. Been watching some Summer League. Bronny James struggled. Canucks look good for the Lakers. So we'll talk about stuff. And as stuff pours in, we'll get into it. But I want to wrap the first show back with, and oh, by the way, training camps, the NFL are opening. So over the next little bit, as we do every summer preparing for the NFL season, we will start doing podcasts on the NFL. We will talk about best offenses, defenses. I will give a rundown of every division before the season starts. So that is all forthcoming. The prep is starting now on that. I love doing those podcasts. So those will be coming over the next couple of weeks. We'll probably do one every week, two every week. So buckle up for those. NFL season is my favorite season, so that'll be forthcoming. But I want to talk about UFC Denver, which was this weekend. You had Thug Rose Namajunas defeating Tracy Cortez in the main event. I thought at worst she lost one round, but she looked really good in the fight. She's had her ups and downs, but she beat Amanda Hebos in March. She beats Tracy here, giving Tracy Cortez only her second loss in her pro career. Lost to Manon Farrow September 2023 in France. But she's now won 2 in a row. She's a big enough name where she can draw looks at title opportunities. And looking at that division, currently she's 6th in the rankings. Above her, you have Jessica Andrade, Macy Barber, Erin Blanchfield. Alexa Grasso is going to fight at Noche UFC in September, defending her title against somebody. It should be Valentina Shevchenko because they're both on the Ultimate Fighter. But it could potentially be Manon Fiorot, who's been on a run. If I'm the UFC, I am booking Macy Barber, Rose Namajunas. Just again, this was supposed to happen. Macy had an injury. I want to see these two women fight. They have a history. They both trained in Colorado for a long time. Let Erin Blanchfield fight somebody lower in the rankings than her. Let her fight, Yazadevicius would be fun, the Canadian who won at UFC. We'll talk about her. Maybe she'll fight Jessica Andrade, potentially. There's fights there for her. She's coming off a loss where she looked pretty poor in the outing. But I think Rose is close. And I think Macy Barber is close. They're both very good fighters. I want to see that fight. Rose winning only makes you want to see it more. She's fought twice this year already. I think she'll get one more in. She'll fight 3 times in 2024. Maybe they'll meet end of the year. That MSG card, that could be an option. 2 big names, 2 women who like to fight, who have a history. I think that's interesting. You have Muslim Salikov beat Santiago Ponzinibbio in the co-main event. Fun fight. John Silva, who fought at UFC 303, missed weight but still fought, knocked out Charles Jourdain of Canada. Takes a fight with Drew Dober, different weight class, 2 weeks later, and wins in the 3rd round via TKO because of a nasty cut over Drew Dober's eye. He's now 14-2 in his pro, and he's a weird guy, does odd things, but he's a really good fighter, and I think his next fight should be against a ranked opponent because Drew Dober's basically right there. Gene Silva against Matt Frivola could be fun. Gene Silva against Jalen Turner could be an interesting fight later in the year. Because in this division, you have Bobby Green who's fighting Paddy Pimblett in a couple weeks at UFC 304. RDA does not have a fight book, but I doubt he's going to take a fight against Gene Silva. Jalen Turner has nobody. Benoit Saint Denis is fighting Renato Moicano in Paris on September 28th. Dan Hooker is fighting Matthias Gamrot at UFC 305 in Perth, Australia in August. Chandler's waiting for the McGregor fight. So a lot of stuff's booked. But Silva's beaten 2 pretty damn good guys lately. He's a great striker. He doesn't take big shots. And he wears you down. He's got knockout power for that division. Gabriel Bonfim picks up another win. He's now 16-1 in his pro career. Good fighter. I thought it was his worst performance in the UFC, however. I don't think he looked great in the fight. But he's 60. He's a good welterweight. He beats Angelusa, who was tough, who refused to give up. Julian Erosa scores a first-round submission guillotine choke of Christian Rodriguez. Rodriguez only had 1 pro loss. He looked better in the first round, but Erosa's just a crafty veteran. 34 years old, be 35 at the end of July. Picks up a win. He's now won 2 in a row. He's good in the featherweight division. He puts on fun fights. He's not afraid of firefights. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, no contest against Cody Brundage. Charles Johnson, Mr. Fly, I think one of the most entertaining fighters on the roster, period, in any division, fights Joshua Van, a great prospect. And Charles lands a nasty uppercut, knocks him out, gives Josh only a 2nd pro loss. Charles, who was on the verge of being cut, let's be honest. 2023, he loses to Audie Osborne, loses to Cody Durden, loses to Rafael Estefan. And they're like, uh-oh. He fights Azad Maksum, who had not lost, beats him. Then fights Jake Hadley in a really fun fight in May, beats him, and then comes back and fights less than 2 months later and beats Joshua Van, one of the best prospects in the UFC. 3 wins since February. He's on a roll. He could get a ranked fighter next. The crowd likes him. I love Charles Johnson. So entertaining. Jasmine Jasudavicius picks up a victory against Fatima Klin, which was her UFC debut, but Jasudavicius, back-to-back wins. She's on a bit of a run. She looks good in that division. She's ranked, Canadian fighter. Good. Montel Jackson, 18-second KO of Damon Blackshear, which was nasty. Luana Santos submits Maria Akapova in the first round. Andre Petrosky gets back in the win column, and Evan Elder beats Darius Flowers. In 12 days, UFC 304 in Manchester, England, Leon Edwards, Bilal Muhammad, Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blades, 2 title fights. You also have Bobby Green, Paddy Pimblett, Muhammad Mahayev, Manel Kopp, Arnold Allen, Giga Kachaze. What a main card. Daniel Pineda, fun fight against Nathaniel Wood, Molly Meatball McCann, Mick Parkin, the undefeated heavyweight, Oban Elliott, who's awesome. It's a great card. A lot of really good fights in Manchester. Before that, this weekend, you have Amanda Lemos, Verna Jandiroba in the main event. Brad Tavares against the Iron Turtle in the co-main event. It's at the Apex. It's not a great card, but it's UFC. There's not a whole lot going on. I will be consuming it, I promise you that. It was great to be back. I missed this. It's great talking to all of you. We'll be back either Wednesday or Thursday this week. We'll talk about the Open Championship. We'll preview that UFC card this weekend. We'll react to things happening around the sports world, including the Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game, which are over the next couple of nights. So stay tuned for that. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Until next time, I'm Noah Warren, and this is To The Point.